He beat her for wanting a career. Now she signs his paychecks. The glass walls of the towering skyscraper glistened in the afternoon sun, reflecting the bustling city below. Inside the sleek, modern office, Sarah sat behind a massive mahogany desk, her hands steady as she signed the final contract. Each stroke of the pen was deliberate, carrying the weight of years of struggle and resilience. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city hummed with life, but inside, the air was charged with something far more personal: victory. Across the room, her assistant placed a fresh cup of coffee beside her, but Sarah hardly noticed. Her mind was focused on the moment, the culmination of countless battles fought in boardrooms, late nights, and hard lessons learned. The contract in front of her wasn't just a business deal, it was a symbol of transformation. The company she now led was acquiring a small but once significant firm, and the irony was deliciously bitter. That firm was the one where Mark still worked, the man who once tried to control and break her. She could almost hear the tension just outside the door. A hesitant knock, a hesitant pause, then silence. Mark's presence lingered like a shadow, waiting to step inside, uncertain of his place in this new world. He was a man diminished, no longer the dominant force he once believed himself to be. And here was Sarah, calm, composed, and unmistakably in control. This moment was years in the making. Sarah's hands had once trembled under the weight of fear and pain. She had once been told she was nothing more than a trophy to be kept in place, a voice to be silenced. But now, she was the one making the decisions, the one signing paychecks, the one leading with unwavering strength. The scars of the past were invisible beneath her polished exterior, but they fueled the fire behind her eyes. As she signed the last line, a small, satisfied smile crossed her lips. This was more than a victory over Mark, it was a reclaiming of her life. And nothing, not even him, could take it away. Sarah grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business, and opportunities felt as limited as the dusty streets she walked every day. From an early age, she was different, curious, driven, and fiercely determined to carve out a life that stretched far beyond the boundaries of her hometown. While her friends talked about settling down and starting families, Sarah dreamed of boardrooms, business plans, and climbing the corporate ladder. She was the kind of girl who read books late into the night, absorbing stories of successful women who changed the world, quietly vowing to be one of them. Her family was loving but modest. Money was always tight, and college seemed like a distant luxury. Still, Sarah refused to let her circumstances define her. She worked part-time jobs through high school, saving every penny. Teachers noticed her sharp mind and encouraged her to apply for scholarships. With their support and her relentless work ethic, she earned a place at a reputable university several hours away from home. College was a revelation. For the first time, Sarah was surrounded by people who shared her hunger for knowledge and success. She dove headfirst into business courses, fascinated by leadership theories, marketing strategies, and finance. She was the student who stayed after class asking questions, who stayed up late preparing presentations, and who volunteered for internships that would build her resume. To Sarah, this was more than education. It was a lifeline to the future she had always imagined. It was during these early college years that Sarah met Mark. On the surface, he was everything she thought she wanted: charming, charismatic, and seemingly supportive of her ambitions. They connected quickly, bonding over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of success. Mark listened attentively as Sarah spoke about her goals, encouraging her to reach higher. At first, he seemed like the partner who would stand beside her as she built her empire. But beneath that polished exterior, there were subtle warning signs Sarah didn't fully notice at the time. Mark's jokes about too much ambition felt more like jabs, and his casual remarks about knowing her place slipped by when Sarah was caught up in her studies and aspirations. She told herself he was just joking, that love required some compromise. Despite these early cracks, Sarah's passion for business only grew stronger. She threw herself into internships with fast-growing companies, learning the intricacies of management and leadership. Her professors praised her insight, and her peers admired her tenacity. With each success, her confidence blossomed, but so did the challenges of balancing a demanding relationship with her rising career. As graduation approached, Sarah faced a crossroads: accept a safe, traditional job in her hometown or leap into the unknown with a competitive position in a city where she knew no one. Fueled by her dreams and a quiet defiance against any who doubted her, Sarah chose the latter. It was a bold move, one that marked the beginning of a journey filled with both incredible opportunities and painful obstacles. Throughout all this, Mark remained a fixture in her life, his support wavering as her independence grew. Yet Sarah clung to the hope that their relationship would evolve into a true partnership, one where her ambitions were celebrated, not feared. Little did she know, this hope would soon be tested in ways she never imagined. At first, Mark seemed like the perfect partner, supportive, attentive, and full of encouragement. He celebrated Sarah's early successes, attending her presentations and bragging about her talents to his friends. But as Sarah's career ambitions grew stronger and more demanding, a darker side of Mark began to emerge, one she hadn't anticipated and wasn't prepared for. It started with small things. Mark's compliments became tinged with subtle criticisms about how much time Sarah spent at work. He questioned why she needed to stay late or attend networking events, his tone shifting from concerned to controlling. "Don't you think you're working too hard?" he would say, masking his jealousy with fake worry. "Maybe you should slow down a bit." Sarah brushed off these remarks, attributing them to stress or insecurity. After all, she loved Mark and wanted to believe in the good parts of him. But the unease grew as Mark's behavior escalated. He would call her repeatedly during the day, demanding updates on her whereabouts, and express anger when she didn't answer quickly enough. His texts shifted from sweet messages to accusatory ones. "Who are you with? Why didn't you answer? Are you hiding something?" The first real alarm bells rang when Mark insisted that Sarah quit a promotion opportunity because it required traveling out of town. He argued that her career was taking her away from what really mattered, their relationship. Sarah tried to reason with him, explaining how important this was for her future, but Mark's face twisted with frustration. "You're putting your job above us," he snapped. "If you loved me, you wouldn't do this." As Sarah pushed back, tension soared. The arguments became more frequent and heated, leaving her exhausted and confused. She found herself walking on eggshells, carefully measuring her words and actions to avoid his anger. One night, after a particularly intense fight, Mark's frustration boiled over. He shoved her against a wall, his voice harsh and threatening. Shocked and terrified, Sarah froze, struggling to comprehend how the man she loved could become so violent. That moment shattered the illusion of the relationship she thought she knew. Fear gripped her heart, but so did confusion. How could Mark, who once promised to support her dreams, now try to control and hurt her? Sarah wrestled with conflicting emotions, loyalty and love battling against the instinct to protect herself. She told herself the abuse was a one-time mistake, that he was stressed or overwhelmed. But the incidents didn't stop. Mark's physical outbursts became more frequent and unpredictable. Sometimes he would apologize afterward, promising it would never happen again, which only tangled Sarah further in hope and pain. She isolated herself from friends and family, ashamed and afraid to reveal the truth. Internally, Sarah fought a relentless battle. Her ambition and desire for independence clashed with the reality of living under Mark's shadow. She questioned her worth, wondering if her dreams were too much or if she was to blame for provoking his rage. Still, deep inside, a spark refused to die, the belief that she deserved better, that her life and career were worth fighting for. Despite the abuse, Sarah held onto small moments of tenderness that Mark occasionally showed, hoping they would return. But the cycle of control, violence, and regret only tightened its grip, making her future seem more uncertain and terrifying. The woman who once dreamed boldly about success was now trapped in a dangerous, suffocating reality where survival became her daily goal. The night Sarah finally decided to leave Mark was the darkest she had ever faced. The house that once felt like a sanctuary had transformed into a cage of fear and uncertainty. Earlier that evening, a minor disagreement had spiraled out of control. Mark's temper flared, his voice rising to a terrifying roar. When his fist slammed against the kitchen counter, Inches from Sarah's face, something inside her snapped. She no longer recognized the man she once loved. The man who had promised to support her dreams had become a monster fueled by control and anger. Her heart pounded as she packed a small bag in silence, every movement trembling with a mix of adrenaline and dread. Leaving meant everything would change. She would be alone, without the security of a familiar routine or a partner, even if that partner was abusive. The thought was terrifying. Who was she without Mark? How would she survive in a world that had seemed so vast and unforgiving when she was just starting out? Fear threatened to paralyze her, but beneath it, a fierce determination burned bright. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, but reality was far more overwhelming. The house was quiet except for the steady ticking of the clock, marking each second that brought her closer to freedom or disaster. She slipped out the back door, careful not to wake the neighbors, clutching her bag tightly. Every step away from the house felt like shedding chains she hadn't fully realized she was wearing. Sarah found refuge at a friend's place, someone she had kept at a distance for fear of revealing her secret pain. The warmth of the small apartment was a stark contrast to the coldness she had left behind. Tears streamed down her face as she finally allowed herself to break, releasing years of bottled-up fear, anger, and sorrow. But even as she cried, a new resolve began to take shape, a commitment to reclaim her life on her own terms. In the days that followed, Sarah faced the daunting task of rebuilding. She wrestled with loneliness and doubt, sometimes questioning if she had made the right choice. But each time fear crept in, she reminded herself of the life she was fighting for, a life where she could pursue her ambitions without fear of violence or control. The strength she found surprised even her, a well of courage fueled by the promise of a better future. Leaving Mark wasn't just about escape, it was about rebirth. Sarah began reaching out to support groups, legal advisors, and career mentors, determined to regain her independence. The road ahead was uncertain and filled with challenges, but she was ready to face them. In that moment of breaking free, Sarah transformed from a woman trapped by fear into one defined by resilience and hope. Her journey was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, she believed she could truly soar. After escaping the toxic grip of Mark, Sarah found herself standing at the edge of a vast and unfamiliar world. The familiar comforts of her old life were gone, replaced by the raw reality of starting over from nothing. With no home of her own and limited savings, she moved into a small, cramped apartment in the city, far from the quiet streets of her hometown. It was a far cry from the life she'd imagined for herself, but Sarah was determined not to let circumstances define her future. Days turned into long nights as Sarah juggled multiple jobs to make ends meet. She took a day shift at a local diner, where the early mornings were exhausting but necessary. After work, she attended night classes at a community college, pouring herself into business courses that reignited her passion. The classroom became a refuge where she could focus on learning, dreaming, and planning her comeback. She was often tired, sometimes overwhelmed, but never willing to quit. Skepticism and judgment were constant companions. Some people doubted her ability to succeed given her past. Coworkers occasionally made snide comments, and she sensed the quiet skepticism of some professors when they learned she was balancing work and school alone. But Sarah refused to internalize their doubts. Instead, she used them as fuel, proving every day that she was more than the circumstances she had escaped. Slowly but surely, Sarah began to build a reputation for herself. In class discussions, she offered insightful perspectives grounded in real-world experience. She took leadership roles in group projects, showing a natural talent for organizing and motivating others. Her instructors noticed her dedication, often praising her perseverance and sharp mind. Outside the classroom, Sarah explored opportunities for internships and part-time work related to her field. She landed a position at a small marketing firm, where she initially handled administrative tasks but quickly caught the attention of her supervisors with her innovative ideas and strong work ethic. Her ability to juggle multiple responsibilities without losing focus made her stand out. Sarah's personal transformation was mirrored by her growing confidence. She no longer saw herself as a victim but as a survivor and a fighter. She began networking, attending local business meetups and workshops, even when the anxiety of new social situations gnawed at her. Each new connection was a step toward reclaiming the professional life she had once dreamed of. There were setbacks, times when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, moments when doubt crept in during lonely nights. But Sarah's resolve only strengthened. She set small goals: passing a difficult exam, earning a promotion, saving a certain amount each month. Each milestone was a victory, a reminder that she was capable of rebuilding her life on her own terms. By her late 20s, Sarah had transitioned from the scattered beginnings of a new life to a clear trajectory of success. She moved into a better apartment, started investing in her own business ideas, and cultivated a growing network of mentors and supporters. Her reputation as a savvy, tough businesswoman spread among colleagues and clients alike. She was no longer defined by her past but by the tenacity and courage she demonstrated every day. Sarah's journey was a testament to resilience, the quiet, relentless determination to rise from the ashes and build something lasting. She had learned that success was not just about talent or opportunity, but about grit, courage, and the refusal to be broken by hardship. With each step forward, Sarah was proving not only to the world but to herself that she was unstoppable. After Sarah walked out of his life, Mark's world began to unravel faster than he ever imagined. Without the control he so desperately clung to, everything slipped through his fingers like sand. His temper, once hidden behind a facade of charm, exploded more frequently, alienating the few friends and colleagues he had left. At work, his reputation plummeted. Managers lost patience with his outbursts and lack of professionalism, leading to a string of job losses that he could neither explain nor prevent. The defining moment of Sarah's rise came when her company acquired a struggling competitor, the very business Mark had landed after his own professional decline. This acquisition was more than a strategic win. It was a symbolic reversal of roles. Mark, once the one who tried to suppress Sarah's ambitions, now found himself working under her leadership. Sarah's new position allowed her to reshape the company's direction, implement innovative strategies, and cultivate a culture of respect and growth. Her former abuser was now a subordinate in the company she had built from the ground up. The power balance had shifted dramatically, but Sarah never allowed herself to revel in revenge. Instead, she focused on building a legacy of empowerment and success, proving that true strength comes from resilience and vision. Her ascent wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Every contract won and every milestone achieved symbolized her triumph over a painful past and her unwavering commitment to a future she controlled. Sarah had transformed from a woman fleeing abuse into a respected CEO, a leader who inspired others to overcome their own struggles and reach for greatness. The conference room was stark and unyielding, a silent stage set for a meeting neither Sarah nor Mark had imagined would happen. Mark sat rigidly at the long table, his face a mask of disbelief and simmering humiliation. Just weeks ago, he had wielded control over Sarah's life with harsh words and harsher hands. Now, he was here to report to her a reality he struggled to accept. Sarah entered the room with calm confidence, every step measured, her eyes steady and clear. She didn't gloat or lash out, though the power dynamic had shifted so dramatically in her favor. Instead, her demeanor was one of composed authority, a leader who had earned her place through grit and vision, not through dominance or fear. As Mark stumbled through the update on the project he was assigned, his voice faltering under the weight of his new subordinate, Sarah listened patiently but firmly. She interjected when necessary, guiding the conversation with clarity and purpose. There was no room for the arrogance or aggression he once displayed. In her presence, he was reduced to a man grappling with the consequences of his past. Beneath Sarah's assertiveness lay a complex emotional undercurrent. She felt a quiet triumph, proof that she had risen above the abuse and limitations he had tried to impose. Yet, she tempered that victory with empathy, recognizing the brokenness that had fueled his cruelty. Sarah's strength wasn't in retaliation but in forgiveness and transformation. Mark's humiliation was palpable. His eyes darted nervously, searching for a foothold in a world where he no longer held power. But Sarah's unwavering composure left him no space to recover his old self. The role reversal was complete, and in that moment, It was clear that Sarah was no longer the frightened woman who once walked away. She was a leader, a force to be reckoned with. The meeting ended with Sarah assigning new responsibilities to Mark, signaling not just a professional shift but a personal reckoning. As he left the room, Mark carried with him the bitter weight of his downfall, while Sarah stood taller, proof that resilience and grace could rewrite any story. Sarah stood before the group of young women, the room buzzing with quiet anticipation. As she looked out at their eager faces, she felt the weight of her own journey, a path marked by pain, struggle, and ultimately triumph. The wounds from her past, once raw and defining, had become the fuel that powered her success and shaped the woman she had become. She spoke with a calm strength that came from hard-won wisdom. "I know what it feels like to be told you're not enough, to have your dreams dismissed or even punished," she began. "But your past does not define your future. The pain I endured taught me resilience, not just to survive, but to thrive. It gave me the fire to build a life where I am in control." Sarah shared stories of the obstacles she had faced, the moments she wanted to give up, and the courage it took to walk away from a relationship that tried to break her spirit. She talked about the nights spent working late, the sacrifices made, and the unwavering belief in her own potential that kept her moving forward. "But resilience isn't just about enduring," she said. "It's about breaking cycles of fear, control, and abuse. It's about reclaiming your power and standing tall, even when the world tries to push you down." Her words resonated deeply. The young women saw in Sarah not just a successful entrepreneur, but a beacon of hope, someone who had transformed pain into purpose and fear into strength. As the session ended, Sarah felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She wasn't just sharing her story, she was lighting a spark for others to believe in their own strength. Her journey from victim to victor was more than a personal victory. It was a testament to the power of resilience and the promise of new beginnings. Walking away from the podium, Sarah knew her mission was clear: to empower others to rise, just as she had. The past was behind her, but the future, filled with hope, independence, and strength, was hers to shape and hers to share. The boardroom buzzed with anticipation as Sarah confidently signed the major contract that would take her company to new heights. Behind her, Mark stood silently, his expression a mix of disbelief and reluctant respect. Sarah's voiceover filled the room, steady and resolute. "I was once told I couldn't have a career. Now, I'm the one writing the rules." The scene faded out to a powerful message: strength is born from survival, and no one can steal the life you're determined to reclaim. Her journey was proof that resilience transforms pain into power.